and yet in Soweto you have schools that do not have ablution facilities. It can't be a resource problem.
No.
So it means we have problems of systems. You've got problems of dignity. You've got problems of how we treat ourselves as people. And we're saying we need to restore that. That's one of the things we need to do. Get systems right. Get pride to people. Get people to love themselves. Get people to have confidence in themselves. And one of the things we want to do as the Each One Teach One Foundation is to raise these issues, raise this plight, work with communities to encourage that. So
I think you're doing a fantastic job. We've got to follow you very, very closely. I have to wrap this, but you've started? Is it something that's just being spoken about right now, or is it actually being put into action?
We put into action. In fact, we encourage people to come and participate tomorrow at the Gold Reef City Casino.
Gold Reef
the
City?
Each One Teach One Foundation is hosting a fundraising dinner. Amongst guests there of honor, the newly appointed Deputy President of the country, Mr. Cyril Ramahosa, will be among the guest speakers. And tables are going for 20,000, sitting for 10. We encourage people to come in. We call on business people to join. Especially those who are doing business in Soweto. Here's an opportunity to plow back.
Brilliant. And this money all gets pumped into the revitalization of these schools and putting passion back into teaching in the Soweto area. Okay, so is there an email address? Something you can give me?
The email address is eachoneteach1.org.za. All the details are there. eachoneteach1.org.za. Visit the website. Thank you. Thank you.
Keep up this great work. It really is it's a great initiative. Mbangwa Taba, Each One Teach One Foundation. Let's take a break. Music after this. Stay tuned.
Village is a large family homestead with 16 huts, each of them with its own specific purpose.
My responsibility, it is taking care of the family. As far as cleanliness is concerned, I have to make sure that I keep the home as clean as possible every morning when I wake up.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Sasol says it's still ready and waiting for government to give the green light to fracking. Sasol avoided eskom's woes because it makes more than 70% of its own energy. The ECB left interest rates unchanged at a record low of 0.25%. The ECB also failed to suspend weekly operations to soak up money it spent on sovereign bonds at the height of the Eurozone debt crisis, known as sterilisation.
That's business news, weekdays at 8 p.m. on SABC News.
Time to say goodbye to you now. Thank you so very much for watching. Hope you had a good morning with us. Hope you enjoyed it. Well, we're just going to end it off for you now with another play out from the incredible Herbie Twayele and his quartet as well. He hasn't got everybody with him, but he certainly has got Sisonke, and he's on the tenor sax. Thank you so much. We'll see you again on Monday. God bless you all, and sharp, sharp.
99% Zulu has returned to the Lyric Theatre in Gold Reef City in Johannesburg this weekend.
Now do the Mateba jive. The Mateba jive. This guy doesn't know how to do the Mateba jive.
Sarah Dupree is bringing his celebrity impersonations to Johannesburg. Audiences will be treated to nights of glitz and glamour and Cher, Lady Gaga, Tina Turner and more impersonations.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays, 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Evan Jansen. The show is broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube as we speak, really, with our entire show then available on our YouTube channel. That's all the time. Today, we ask the question, will Eskom keep the lights on this winter here in South Africa? Then, will Cyril Ramahosa be the man to make a difference in the divide within South African Labour? We'll talk about that at length shortly, and also the mental state of South Africa's police force after a tragic incident at the Cape Town airport this week. First, though, here are our top stories. Internal battles within COSATU have been put on hold. The COSATU Central Executive Committee has also recognized that at the center of the divisions are political and ideological differences. This meant a court challenge by some COSATU affiliates insisting on a special national congress have been suspended, as well as internal disciplinary processes against Zwelinzima Vavi. Decisions were reached following a 3-day meeting of COSATU's Central Executive Committee. NIMSA has committed itself to the resolutions taken at the CEC meeting. South Africa has introduced new visa regulations. Major amendments have been made to immigration laws in this country. The changes are meant to bring legislation in line with international norms and standards. A 9-month-old baby died following the diarrhea outbreak in the northwest province town of Bloemhof. The area is still reeling from a water-depleted week after the health department treated close to 300 people for vomiting, diarrhea and stomach cramps. This has been caused by sewage spilling into the Vaal River that supplies water to those communities. Now, winter is knocking at our doors, with early mornings already darker and colder. And the main concern on every South African's mind right now is, are the lights going to stay on this winter? Earlier this month, we had reports that Eskom will battle to keep the lights on this winter as plant performance and unplanned outages remain problematic. A lot happening in the energy sector as well this week. Ongoing wage negotiations with trade unions, as well as the appointment of a new energy minister, which has been met with a lot of cynicism. We are joined by Eskom spokesperson Andrew Etzinger this morning. Good morning, Andrew, and thank you for joining us again.
Good morning, Evan. It's my pleasure.
It's been an interesting week in the energy sector, hasn't it? Before we get there, though, I think the most pressing thing that people are talking about is whether the lights are going to stay on this winter and how people should be preparing for it. If it's not, what are you saying to them?
We come through a tough summer. Of course, with load shedding on the 6th of March, I think it's top of mind, and that's completely understandable. Yeah. Winter is a time when we have our highest demand during the course of the year. But the good news is that we're well prepared. At a national level, power station capacity, we have enough, but whether there'll be strain on local network municipalities, that remains to be seen. Normally, those municipalities come under pressure at this time. So worst case scenario would be a cold front over the whole country, slow moving. If it's stuck around for a couple of days, we all put on electrical heaters. Yeah. Of course, that's going to push up the demand very high. But at this stage, all systems go. Generation plant is performing well.
Plant performance and unplanned outages, are these areas of concern still, and how will those affect us?
In summer, it certainly was a problem. We had a number of outages, particularly resulting from the torrential rain over weeks, and that actually ultimately led to the load shedding in March. At this stage, though, the unplanned outages, the trips, the technical failures are within our normal planning parameters, so nothing to be concerned about there. We're still doing maintenance, quite a lot of maintenance, planned maintenance, and again, we're taking the opportunity of the slightly warmer weather this week to do that maintenance, and we'll phase that maintenance based on the weather conditions. So at this stage, everything is under control, and we will certainly, if anything changes, come back to the public. We do need the public support, though, between 6 and 7 in the evening, particularly. That is when that spike occurs.
The big spike is between 6 and 7.
But the chances of rolling load shedding, as we've seen in the past, are very remote during the day. During the day, we've got ample power. It's just really during that critical peak hour.
Just bring us up to date with the latest of the wage negotiations within trade unions. On Monday, we saw Solidarity rejecting the 4.5% that was on the table, and as I understand, negotiations are still underway.
Sure. We've been through the first round of negotiations. Eskom had put forward an offer of 4.5%, which was rejected by organised labour. Yeah. And that's the game. We're now entering the second round. I think that started on Wednesday, so there'll be a lot of negotiation, not only about the number, but about a number of other issues such as paternity leave and these conditions of service. So it's a general package, and we'll see in the next couple of weeks how that unfolds. But the teams are actively engaged.
The strikes have really been a real problem in the South African economy. It's set us back a little bit. How far are you guys apart, and are you confident that things will be sorted out and the public won't suffer at the hands of any breakdowns?
Certainly, I think the whole of South Africa is very mindful of the risks here from both sides. I think we're treating the negotiations very responsibly. As I said, on a daily basis, the teams are intensively engaged. Eskom is in a slightly different position to the platinum sector in the sense that we are an essential service, so in good faith in terms of the negotiations, but we must also be realistic in terms of the affordability of high wages. We need to pass those wages on through to the public through the price of electricity, so we're very mindful of that as well. We're not only negotiating for Eskom, but for our customers as well.
I have to ask you some of the tough questions also that's popping up this week. We can't ignore the Vavi matter, of course. Sure. Reports earlier this week saying that COSATU's General Secretary won't go down alone for the purchasing of COSATU's old building. Eskom's acting CEO, Colin Machila, has now been implicated in this matter.
This is a matter which relates to our interim chief executive in his former life, nothing to do with keeping the lights on. We've got to stay focused on keeping the lights on, and that's where we are. So we're not involved at all.
And then Tina Joubert-Pedersen has been appointed as the new energy minister. What is Eskom's view? Do you believe that Joubert-Pedersen will now, is capable to handle this portfolio? That's the question that everyone's asking on social media, really.
Well, we've got a whole new cabinet. So we in fact, from Eskom's point of view, our policy minister, as you say, the Minister of Energy is new, as well as our own minister, the Minister of Planning of their priorities. Yeah. So it's very early days. I think give us a chance to unpack and meet them,
interact
and then get those which we haven't done yet.
Give us a quick update on the progress at the power stations under construction at the moment. Medupi's one, yep. I think Kusile, Ngula, the others.
Yes.
What's happening there?
Great. Good news is that Medupi, which had been delayed for 3 key reasons, is well on track at the moment. There was a lot of labour-related strife. Fortunately, we have managed to put in place a partnership agreement between labour, the workers, contractors, and ourselves. In terms of the welding, which Hitachi had got wrong, that has now been sorted out, and the instrumentation and controls that Alstom had been developing back on track together with the new partner we brought in, Siemens. So glad to say that power is well on track at this stage to come on stream before the end of this year from Medupi.
That's the good news today. Thank you, Eskom spokesperson Andrew Etzinger, for joining us today and giving us a little bit of a heads up, as it were, as to what's happening within your organisation. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Ivan.
We hope that we have a very good winter with you guys. Thank you.
So far, so good. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Well, COSATU has agreed to give the ANC task team, led by the party's Deputy President, Cyril Ramahosa, a further month to mediate deep rifts within the Labour Federation. The Federation addressed the media after a 3-day meeting of its Central Executive Committee yesterday.
we can't answer that question.
And that's the demeanor the briefing assumed, skirting questions. Instead, a federation emphasizing yet another agreement to cease all hostilities for a month. These include halting court battles and the demand for a special national congress.
The question of the Congress was put in abeyance by the 8th of April Special Central Executive Committee. Why? Because it is seen as a divisive issue inside the Federation. Why? Because there is no common view as to whether it is going to be helping or not helping to help cement unity of COSATU affiliates.
The cessation of hostilities means all union affiliates have to abide by these rules.
Anything that will militate against finding unity and cohesion in the Federation. We don't want to even venture into the specifics, because when we had our own discussion, unions know exactly what does that mean. Exactly as we said, that in the absence of that, there is a recourse to that effect.
Federation leaders are upfront, saying divisions are fueling factionalism, and the mediation success is not guaranteed. When the ANC task team returns in just over 4 weeks with COSATU's final report, the Federation's national office bearers will not necessarily be bound by it. In fact, they may even reject it.
If at the end of the day it's not what we think helps us, we shall be able to say, sorry, ANC, you know you were genuine, you tried to assist us, it's not helping us, then we go back, we throttle each other continuously if we choose to do so. If it's a package that you are happy with, thank you, ANC, well done. As an alliance partner and the leader of the alliance, you played your responsible role very, very well.
In the interim, if COSATU leaders are to be believed, expect a low profile on the Federation front. Yulisa Ndramela, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, COSATU spokesperson Patrick Craven is with us in studio this morning. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Craven. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
3 days of this Central Executive Committee meeting. Just quickly, what did you achieve and what stands out for you, really?
Well, we were continuing a discussion which began at a special Central Executive Committee in April, which agreed then that we would allow an ANC task team led by Deputy President Cyril Ramahosa to try to find a solution to the problems which COSATU has been facing. And at this week's meeting we received an interim report, and they said they still hadn't had time to meet all the affiliated unions, which they were determined to do. They'd met 12 and wanted another 4 weeks in which to meet the rest of the unions, and then to have a very full session with the national office bearers before coming back again to a Central Executive Committee to give their final report. And our hope is that the ceasefire, which was agreed in April, will now be extended. And a lot of the discussion revolved around how to make it more tighter, to make sure that it really is maintained. And one important condition now was that not only should any action against an individual or a union be put on ice, but that statements about the controversial issues should also be stopped. And a subcommittee was set up which will investigate any allegations that this condition has been breached.
That there's a fight being fought in the media and so forth. But I wanted to ask you about what's happened the last 8 to 12 months. In some quarters it's become clear that it almost came down to personality a little bit and personal differences. How do we stop that from interfering in the process again?
Well, that is precisely why we have set up this process, to try to find out what the real issues are and make sure that we don't take action based on issues which are not ultimately going to destroy the unity of the Federation, and which can be resolved by this subcommittee, the task team. Obviously, I cannot go into details because I am also bound by the commitment that we won't talk about these issues in public. But in broad terms, our aim is to do everything possible to cement unity within the Federation. And it's also important to stress that we're talking about an embargo on certain issues. It doesn't mean to say that unions or the Federation can't issue statements on general questions and that we can't continue with our normal work, which is continuing. Our fighting against unfair dismissals at the CCMA and the Labour Court, engaging in meetings at NEDLAC, collective bargaining, all this continues unabated, and of course we will be making statements on those issues. And broad policy issues like the national minimum wage or opposition to labour brokers, that hasn't changed at all.
So talks of a split would be then premature, as you are confident that the path forward will stave off that?
Well, we certainly all hope so. Obviously, I can't predict the outcome of this process, and wouldn't an ANC task team led by Deputy President Cyril Ramahosa to try. They still hadn't had time to meet all the affiliated unions, which they were determined to do. They'd met 12 and wanted another 4 weeks in which to meet the rest of the unions, and then to have a very full session with the national office bearers before coming back again to a central executive committee to give their final report. And our hope is that the ceasefire, which was agreed in April, be extended. And a lot of the discussion revolved around how to make it more tighter, to make sure that it really is maintained. And one important condition now was that not only should any action against an individual or a union be put on ice, but that statements about the controversial issues should also be stopped. And a subcommittee was set up which will investigate any allegations that this condition has been breached.
That there's a fight being fought in the media and so forth. But I wanted to ask you about what's happened the last 8 to 12 months. In some quarters it's become clear that it almost came down to personality a little bit, and personal differences. How do we stop that from interfering in the process again?
Well, that is precisely why we have set up this process, to try to find out what the real issues are and make sure that we don't take action based on issues which are not ultimately going to destroy the unity of the Federation, and which can be resolved by this subcommittee, the task team. Obviously, I cannot go into details because I am also bound by the commitment that we won't talk about these issues in public. But in broad terms, our aim is to do everything possible to cement unity within the Federation. And it's also important to stress that we're talking about an embargo on certain issues. It doesn't mean to say that unions or the Federation can't issue statements on general questions and that we can't continue with our normal work, which is continuing. Our fighting against unfair dismissals at the CCMA and the Labour Court, engaging in meetings at NEDLAC, collective bargaining, all this continues unabated.
Your street lights are on during daytime. Please speak to your council. Cities here in Johannesburg, that I don't get, because that for me is a waste. Anyhow, let's take...
Obviously, I can't predict.
A legitimate fear, though, is that within this process of, let's call it...
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by untouchables, but this whole process is based on the assumption that to change those policies, we are all bound by them, and therefore we have to base any agreement on those founding principles.
Finally, next steps. How do you proceed with this process now, behind the scenes, in the media scrutiny, as it were?
Well, it is proceeding already. That was as we speak.
Well, fantastic. We hope that there's success and that breakthroughs for the benefit of South Africa and the country's economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Patrick Craven, who's the spokesperson for COSATU here in South Africa. Let's take a look now at some of the front pages. The more than 200 abducted schoolgirls in Borno State in that country. In the United States, Obama tried once more to attack and Tony Blair in the run-up to the Iraq War, and it looks like the public will never be told what was said. Then, of course, what is a UK paper without a beautiful picture of the Duchess of Cambridge enjoying some whiskey at a Scottish distillery? How civilized it is indeed. Thousands of choices at SABC Newsroom is where you can contact and interact with us. But let's have a look at what you are talking about. He's in Durbanville and he's having a go at Eskom this morning. We dealt with that a little bit earlier. Rochesi? Oh, Rochesi, South Africa. Don't use it. Use it sparingly, especially between 6 and 7 in the evening. Chacha says, South Africa, Tina Jummert-Pedersen has been appointed as the Eskom faulty turbine that keeps turning without generating any electricity. That is very harsh on a Friday morning. These are your and blinding drivers on the road. These are your views. And then we have during the daytime, and there's a picture of that happening. If your street lights are on during buildings throughout the cities here in Johannesburg, that I don't get, because that for me is a waste. Anyhow, let's take on.
I think that everyone around a number of things, that the regulatory environment for platinum miners is fair. So here we're talking about also labor regulation, but also, as you know, there's been a lot of work being done over the last couple of years. Document, and a lot of good work, in fact. This is another reason for optimism. A lot of good work has gone on there, so outside of the strike, to make the amendment to that act more palatable to all players. And that's work that's been going on between all the role players since 2012 and even before that.
Can South Africa, can we afford this round of
militant union? We have the business side of this industry saying, you know, we can't do something that will make us if you like, one would have to.
Thank you very much for joining us from Cape Town. That is Pierre Murray, who's an investment specialist, giving us his thoughts on what's going on in the gun on himself. Police said it allegedly looked like an argument ensued between him and a woman believed to, at the time, to be his partner. Police brutality is also an ongoing topic in the South African media. And this week, we saw the return of the being done on a counselling level to ensure that cops don't become the criminals themselves. We are joined by Mariki du Toit, who is a trauma specialist and has worked with members of the police force here in South Africa. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Good morning, Eben. It's a pleasure.
Due to untreated mental illness, are we endangered by our police force in South Africa?
Eben, no, absolutely not. I think first of all, it's very important to try to understand the work the people are doing and to know that it is human beings doing that work.
Yeah.
I think one of the misconceptions that we have is a police force. Personnel must fight crime. It is a service at the end of the day they have to render. And understanding the stress situations that they're working in here.
Yes.
But believe me, I do this morning. But anyway, if you go to the policeman, and so if you can just think, if you're going through a situation every day, shooting at you, so you stay constantly in a stress situation, then all that adrenaline is there. And you know, Eben, the best thing of all is our body gives.
We had a Marikana shooting incident. We have the assault of people. A taxi driver was killed recently, Midamasia and so forth. How does that play out within this context?
Eben, is that stress, but there's no outflow. So at a certain stage, that the anger in a positive, constructional way and not negative.
I think that everyone around the table is probably now regulatory environment for platinum miners is fair. So here we're talking about also labour, the legislation that governs mines, and particularly the MRPDA, to make the amendment to that act more palatable to all players. And that's work that's been going on between
this round of talks to break down.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, but saying, we can't do something that will make us go.
Kinds of pressures that police officers are under.
Be the outcome on a sustainable basis are no longer making any money. So in terms of
what's going on in the South African market, police said it allegedly looked like an argument ensued. Must see a case here in Johannesburg. Police members are always facing emotional assaults. We are joined by Mariki du Toit, who is a trauma specialist. Due to untreated...
I think first of all, it's very important to try to understand. It's not a police force, it's a police service. We are render of the day they have to render. And understanding the stress experience, any adrenaline working here.
Yes.
But believe me, I do this morning. But anyway, if you go to the policeman and the body act in a way that each and every day that there's maybe 1 or 2 traumatic incidents, but there is 7 cars that you have to pull off, and that car can be, there can be a person with firearms shooting at you. So you stay constantly in a stress situation. Then all that adrenaline is there. And Eben, the best thing of all is our body gives anger so that you can fight or flight. And that's the problem. There's no way to get rid of that anger, and that's why...
Raising funds to make this big idea.
Panels have microprocessors. This gives us the ability to make our processor is a two-way communications device. With 128 LEDs in each panel and 5 different colors, there is no limit to the lines, texts, and graphics you can create.
Our smart roads will prevent accidents by warning you of danger and will pave the way for driverless vehicles. The solar roadway is a decentralized power grid.
The implementation of our vision on a massive scale can produce more energy than we use as
professionals like psychologists, social workers that's there. I would like to see more people that can...
Zoom.
Then they're not copying and they're cuckoos.
On 21 March 1990, the population is over 2 million people. One of the major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit is the Namibian dollar.
Control. And then he fall back on the way that he know how to handle
Africa. The king. That's Kaleidoscope. Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Taught him to act, to fight. And as I said, the police service is a service. That's why you must first try to stabilize the situation.
Kinds of pressures that police officers are under. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Mariki du Toit, who is a trauma specialist. Let's take a look at what you are talking about on social media. At SABC Newsroom is where we interact with you. If a super will come up, you'll see at SABC Newsroom, or you can go to our website, sabc.co.za. Had a good time playing political chess. So far, he's winning. At Yelisa Njamela, then Chacha again says, Alfred coming in. The communist Chinese and their mafias have a tight grip on COSATU SABC because of financial gains and illegal smuggling. Well, that's a little bit far-fetched. Maybe you should, in 140 characters, put the case forward. Solomon says, sidetrack COSATU, withering, dithering, lost compass. Greg Nicholson, too distracted for their own class. Those are just some of your comments, some of the things you're talking about. Let's have a look at what's happening on our Facebook page. Now, of course, there you get all our stories. On the page, you'll also find the story about the extensive changes to immigration laws, which was implemented on Monday. Resources Minister Cyril Ramahosa will continue this morning. More on all these stories. The power roads could be the answer to generate enough energy for a nation. They melt snow and cut greenhouse gases by up to 75%. The company is now raising funds to make this eco-dream a reality. They've already passed its crowdfunding target of a...
This gives us the ability to make all of our roads and parking lots and every other application 8 LEDs in each panel and 5 different colors. There is no limit.
It's a real intense competition in South Africa, and some of our colleagues from Lesotho have been at
Fontaine. Don't go away.
This is Namibia. One of the major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit.
The Mantanga waterfall is one of Swaziland's best known and most accessible waterfalls, as it can be seen within 50 meters.
That's Kaleidoscope.
The show that brings you the latest local and international news, live interviews with the who's who in sport. He's the first.
And their day job is their sport, but these guys do it. And the sport itself is struggling slightly in the sense that not a lot of sponsors throwing money at this. But I can tell you from having attended a couple of the world events, it's exciting stuff.
Indeed it is, and we are the world champions, Richard, which the epicenter of South Africa's world champions and sheep shearing are. Talking about sport, we end the week as always. Tennis this week.
I have been watching some French Open, and I'm quite enjoying it so far. There's been quite a few upsets this week with a couple of top seeds being knocked out.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, you know, the Williams sisters, they've really have been suspended, as well as internal disciplinary processes against Zwelinzima Vavi. Decisions were reached following a 3-day meeting of COSATU's Central Executive Committee. NUMSA has committed itself to the resolutions taken at the CEC meeting. Norms and standards. And a 9-month-old baby died following the diarrhea outbreak in the north caused by sewage spilling into the Vaal River that supplies water to those communities. The venue for the Golden Shears Championship, an event that pits the best shearers from 27 countries around the globe against each other, and the clock with the centre of the South African sheep shearers based in Bloemfontein.
But you know, his contract does also build up for Bafana for the rest of the year. So it will be interesting. There's also a couple of other matters that SAFA will be discussing on Saturday, but I think the chances are good that Ingerson could get the bat.
At the moment,
of course, this is an amazing sport because for many years it wasn't regarded as a sport. It was just something seconds between guys. They have to cut the sheep. They can't nick the sheep. It's especially a great success when they're in the northern hemisphere because the sheep that they shear, even that takes some doing.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic achievement, Richard.
Now, Fredericks, some of the Cheetah players, Jacques Duplessis, some of the Bulls
young
forwards.
Self-Fontaines and the like, these kinds of players are still young and the future of South African rugby. Let's close quickly.
France, Scotland, and there's some good money to be made. It's a sport as well. I mean, there's not too many people who can say that their sport is their day job and their day job is their sport, but these guys do it. And there is an interest now from more than just people who grew up on people within the agricultural couple of the world events. It's exciting stuff.
Indeed it is, and we are the world champions, Richard. We're, well, the epicenter of South Africa's world champion. Firstly, for you to join us on a Friday.
A big financial incentive in winning the Comrades.
Well, fantastic. We know it's going to be a great event and it's going to be...
And so after their second round exit, but just on the day didn't perform that well. But also...
On the tennis front. But let's just talk quickly. There's a match on at the moment, isn't it? Bafana 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube at that time with our whole show then available on demand. In charge, as some people are mentioning this morning.
And then attended to some matters there and then flew back to South Africa on Wednesday. That may be an indication that...
That's live pictures coming in from New Zealand where South Africa are playing against New Zealand, against the All Whites. I can tell you the game has just kicked off and